Welcome to the Eczema Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Julia Chen. I'm here to help you heal your eczema naturally so you can finally live your best damn life. Many years ago in my own eczema healing journey, I was stuck and confused on how to heal my skin. Fast forward to today, after many lessons learned and lots of trial and error, I'm now living my best life and traveling the world with clearer skin. If you're an eczema or TSW warrior who desires a life of food freedom and is wanting to heal your skin without steroids while using mindset and manifestation as a tool, you're in the right place. Now let's get into it. Hello, my angels. Welcome to episode 4 of the Eczema Warrior Podcast. I am right now sitting on my comfy bed. I just lit a candle. I have my cup of tea next to me, and I'm just ready to share with you guys this week's episode all about my top 5 tips for healing TSW, in other words, topical steroid withdrawal. It's a whole vibe tonight. It's been a long day for me, to be honest. In last week's episode, I was sharing about how I've been moving, and it's been quite busy for me trying to pack my stuff. You guys know what it's like to move, but very exciting because as I shared in last week's episode, I'm moving out of Canada into a different country. I don't know if I shared with you guys like exactly where yet, but I'm trying to keep it like a secret. More so that I want it to be a surprise that when it does happen, you guys will see where I am. But I will be leaving Canada in the next 5 weeks, and I'm super, super excited. So I guess I'm sharing a life update, pretty much what I'm doing right now. So besides me moving over the past week, what else has been new? Honestly, moving has taking up most of my days and most of my nights. I haven't really had any other time to do other things besides, of course, like serving clients, enrolling new members into Clear Eczema over the past couple weeks. So I've been busy with that. And then just a few days ago, I got my tattoo done. So I've been wanting to finish my tattoo for the longest time, and I kept delaying it. Delayed it for 2 years, and I finally went to see my tattoo artist. So he finished up the rest of my sleeve because, of course, now that I'm moving out of Canada, I'm not going to be able to see him. So I was like, please squeeze me in. So he was able to get in an appointment with me before I go. So that was fun, but painful. Okay, what else is new besides like moving, my tattoo appointment? Oh, here's another thing I've been doing. I've been learning Spanish. So I have been working one-on-one with a Spanish teacher from Colombia. He was recommended by one of my friends who I also met in Colombia, and he's actually American, but he was traveling in Colombia and he wanted to learn Spanish. So he found a Spanish teacher, and I've been taking lessons with him. So a big chunk of my time recently have been obviously the sessions I'm having with him every week. So we do like 2 to 3 hours of Spanish every week. And of course, I got to practice. So I'm trying to spend time to practice Spanish, learn more of it. And so that when I go to Central/South America, which is my next destination, I want to make sure that I can actually talk with the locals and be a little bit more fluent than I was when I was there, because I definitely struggled a lot, you guys, when I was down in Central and South America. And the amount of times I got ripped off because I just don't know the numbers. I don't know how to ask for things. I can't even count. So I'm definitely trying to learn as much as I can before I leave in the next 4 to 5 weeks. So yeah, that's pretty much a life update. Nothing too exciting, just kind of getting things together as I literally just landed back in Vancouver a couple weeks ago. And then getting my ducks in a row to prepare to leave again. And then just trying to also serve my clients as well, which is very, very important to me during this time. Okay, so let's get into today's episode, all about my top 5 tips with healing TSW. TSW standing for topical steroid withdrawal. Now, before I even go into the 5 tips, and I think this will be a completely different episode eventually of me explaining what exactly topical steroid withdrawal is. But for the purpose of this podcast episode, I'll just kind of explain to you what TSW really means. So TSW, topical steroid withdrawal, is basically withdrawal from topical steroids that includes a vast amount of symptoms that are very, very debilitating. The list is honestly very long when it comes to symptoms, and I'll talk about it in a different episode, but basically it is a drug withdrawal that happens when people use topical steroids on their skin for treating eczema. And because when eczema warriors are given topical steroids to use, we're often not told that they are actually not safe to use for long term. Many doctors and dermatologists unfortunately do not tell their patients that. So what happens is that a lot of people end up going through TSW, topical steroid withdrawal, because of the overuse of topical steroids on their skin. So then eventually when one person decides to stop steroids for whatever reason, they start to experience a rebound effect, meaning that their skin gets out of control. It flares really, 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 really bad. It's not eczema at this point anymore. It is now a drug withdrawal. So this is basically what happens from the overuse of steroids in a nutshell. There's obviously more to it, which I'll explain in a different podcast episode, but just kind of want to give you a little overview in case you've never heard of this term before. So in today's episode, I want to talk about exactly how to heal topical steroid withdrawal. And basically these 5 tips that I'll be sharing in this episode are what I have found the most helpful for my own journey, but also in my practice, I support a lot of TSW clients who are either in the early stages, in the midst of TSW, or in their later stages of TSW. So either like 4 or 5 years into TSW, I have clients also at that stage as well. And all of these tips that I'm sharing in today's episode applies at every stage. Maybe some of them more or less, depending on your symptoms, of course, because when you're going through TSW, you have your own set of symptoms that not everybody will experience. But I hope what I share in today's episode is going to help you regardless, because they are very, very practical things to implement. So the number 1 tip for healing topical steroid withdrawal is to get as much rest and self-care as much as possible. When you're fighting such a debilitating condition, your body is literally overworking all day, all night. First of all, when you're going through TSW, you can't even sleep for some of the nights. So you're itching, you're scratching. It's really, really difficult to even rest at all, especially in the nighttime. So when it comes to this tip of trying to get as much rest as possible, if you cannot sleep at night, sleep in the day. Take naps. Do what you need to do in order to get as much rest as possible, because your body is literally burning everything trying to fight this terrible, terrible withdrawal. The other thing too is when you're going through TSW, your body is constantly in fight or flight mode because you're stressed. You're stressed from dealing with TSW mentally, emotionally, but also physically, of course, of all the pain and all the itching. So if your body is in constant fight or flight mode, but then you're not getting enough rest, then it's only going to make things harder. So do your best to rest as much as possible, even if you just lay on the couch and do nothing, watch TV, literally do nothing, because your body is really, really going to need the rest. This is something that I learned the hard way, because I actually didn't really prioritize self-care or rest during TSW. I was still working and I was still in school, so I didn't rest as much as I wish I did, thinking back now. I would have nights where I didn't sleep at all because of all the deep bone itching, and then I have to wake up, literally, not even wake up, I'd be still awake. I would go to school at 7 a.m. to go to class. And I eventually had to take a break from school because my body could just not handle not sleeping and going to class. But obviously, I understand if some people, still have to work because you got to pay bills and stuff like that. We have to be realistic too, that stuff needs to get done. However, if you have the opportunity to be able to rest more and maybe take some time off of work or take some time off of school, I suggest it, because you just need to focus on you and focus on the self-care as much as possible during this time. Okay, my second tip when it comes to healing TSW is to avoid any kind of dieting. I know how tempting it is to want to go on a diet. You see all these things people are doing with their nutrition, carnivore diets, the medical medium diet, avoiding certain fruits and vegetables. Like there's all kinds of things that are on the internet telling you to do their way of healing. But the thing is, when you're going through TSW, you actually need way more nutrients than a typical eczema warrior because your body is literally in fight or flight mode constantly, and you're burning lots of calories and lots of protein when you're going through TSW. If you go on these restrictive diets, you're only just going to create more nutrient deficiencies. Your body during this time needs as much nutrients as possible because oftentimes when you're going through TSW, not everybody, but some people really do lose their appetite and they don't feel like eating because they don't feel good. They're mentally not in a good space. They don't want to prep a bunch of food, right? So the last thing you want to think about is to have to avoid all these things, right? Obviously, it's important to keep some things out of your diet, like sugar, processed foods. Those are the main things that could impact your healing. But if you don't need to avoid certain foods, don't do it because I'd much rather you eat the foods you enjoy instead of being more stressed out about the food and then causing your TSW to be worse. Plus, like I said, you need nutrients during this time, so get as much whole foods as possible. Okay, tip number 3 for healing TSW is to have a good support team. This is something I truly lacked in my TSW journey, mostly because there weren't as much support back then in 2015 compared to today. Back then, I didn't think there were many coaches for healing eczema or TSW. It just wasn't talked about as much back then compared to now. And so that's why I suggest now, if you have the resources, is to definitely have several people on your support team, not just having one, because, for example, if you were to have just a doctor or just a dermatologist, they're not trained to teach you how to heal your gut. They're not trained to teach you about diet or nutrition. So we can't really count on them to give us the answers when it comes to that. So for example, what your support team could look like is having a dermatologist on your team. They're the ones that can do assessments. They can look into whether more testing needs to be done. They can look at if your skin's infected or not, which can be very common for TSW patients. It's important to have a doctor, just a general doctor, look at your blood work, do any other assessments that your dermatologist might not do. It's also important to have some kind of mental health support, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a Reiki practitioner, for example. It depends on kind of what you're interested in or what you feel like makes sense for you. But even having a mindset coach, to be honest, they don't have to be specializing in eczema, but if they do, it can be a bonus. For example, I do coach my clients on mindset, and I have experience with eczema and going through TSW, so maybe I could be someone on your team. And so also having someone that can help you with your nutrition. So whether it's a dietitian, maybe it's a licensed nutritionist, because they're the ones that are going to teach you about diet, teach you about healing the gut, teach you about what nutrients you're lacking, right? And so having a full team like this is really going to give you everything you need in terms of support. Now, the last thing is, I almost forgot, is to have a community. So I'm sure if you're listening to this podcast right now and you are going through TSW, you know there's like a TSW community. We're all over Facebook. There's a community of us on Instagram. I used to connect with a lot of TSW warriors off of the Itsan forum. Itsan is a website that basically advocates for TSW. The forum is no longer there, which I'm really sad because I actually met a lot of people on the forum, but that was my go-to back in 2015. to connect with other people who are going through TSW. Also Instagram as well. There were people on Instagram back in 2015, but now there's a bigger community now, which isn't necessarily a good thing. It's actually not a great thing at all, because that just shows that more people are going through TSW. But at least we have each other. There's also, I know there's programs out there that support TSW warriors besides mine. So if mine doesn't interest you, there's also other programs out there who are doing a similar thing. So that's my third tip for healing TSW, is to have a good support team, because everyone can offer their recommendations. They're trained in their area of expertise. So it's good to have multiple people in your team if you want better healing, if you want better support, so you're not in this alone. Tip number 4 for healing TSW is focus on yourself and no one else's journey. I know this is easier said than done. There's a lot of warriors on Instagram and everywhere where we're always sharing, or they're always sharing their journey, how they're doing, what they're doing in terms of supplements, diets, skincare, the whole shebang. Now, sometimes we go down the rabbit hole of looking really deeply into someone's journey and being like, oh my gosh, like, should I try what they're doing? Because it looks like it's working for them, right? Maybe you see a warrior who's been implementing something with their journey and they're doing really well. So you're like, oh, like, maybe I should try that, or maybe I should try this. And then there's like so many different things that people are recommending nowadays: skincare products, supplements, what's the next diet to be on, that it really does get overwhelming, right? Because then you start to compare yourself to what you're doing with theirs. And let's say right now you're at a point where you're not seeing as much healing, but you see someone else healing really well. So then you start to kind of worry, like, oh my gosh, like, should I try something new? Like, mine's not working. And then you start to get in your own head. And the reason why I'm saying this is because this is exactly what I went through during my journey. I literally would try a new thing every 2 to 3 months. Oh, this person is on a juice cleanse. Let me try that. Oh, that person is doing a carnivore diet. Let me try that diet. Oh, this person is taking this supplement. Let me try that supplement. And I will tell you right now, none of those things worked. And the reason, because I was so inconsistent. I would try things for a few months and give up because I would see the next thing. And I just never really truly followed one protocol enough time to be like, okay, this is the one that really works for me. So if you're implementing a protocol right now, whether it's my protocol or a different practitioner's protocol, just follow it, trust it, give it time, and then see how it goes, right? Whatever else everyone else is doing has nothing to do with you, because they have a different body. They have different genes, they have different food, right? They're from a different country, maybe. They live in a different environment. They have different support, right? So their healing is going to be different than yours. And this is going to help you stay on track. It's going to help you not self-sabotage, because that happens when we see that we're not healing. It's also going to help you trust yourself a little bit more, because you're just focusing on you and you're not focusing on anybody else. Okay? And my 5th tip for healing TSW is to have a good skincare/management routine. So the thing with TSW is that no matter what you do with diet, supplements, having a support team, your skin is going to flare during this process, because it's a drug withdrawal, right? So it's trying to figure out how to get your skin in control, given that now you no longer have steroids to control your eczema. So it needs to purge, it needs to flare, it needs to itch. And so when you are going through this cycle, it's pretty much inevitable to not scratch, because the itch is just so different compared to eczema, where it's really deep in your bones. So you're going to notice your skin breaking, you're going to notice wounds, you're definitely going to see cycling of like flaring, maybe oozing for some people, lots of flaking, and then it kind of goes in cycles like this. So when your skin is cycling like this, we obviously want to protect it as much as possible, because If we don't protect it, then there may be more damage from scratching or from being out in the sun or, I don't know, exposure that could cause infections. So that being said, having a good skincare routine and management routine is important. One of my favorite things to use going through TSW was Dead Sea salts. They literally saved my life during TSW. Every time that I would have a massive flare or I would be oozing or my skin was so uncomfortable, I would immediately go and take a bath, and I would put Dead Sea salts into my bathtub, and I would just lay there for like hours sometimes. And that was the only time where my skin felt better. So that's one of the things I suggest for managing TSW is to give Dead Sea salts a shot. That being said, not everyone does well with Dead Sea salts. Some people actually do worse with it. So again, to each their own, right? Just because it worked for me will not necessarily mean that it'll work for everybody. But so far, they've helped not just me, but also a lot of my clients as well. Some other things that have helped me in my journey, but also has helped a lot of my clients in general, is to always have comfortable clothing. You want to wear clothing that you can sleep in, that's not going to make you super hot, that's not going to be causing you to itch more. Cotton clothing usually goes really well during TSW, and just finding clothes that are specifically for TSW. I remember like literally having a set of clothes I would only wear for TSW, like a particular long sleeve shirt, a particular pair of pants. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. So having a set of clothes to wear during the day, but also in the nighttime, is just going to help a lot with the healing process. Because for me, when I wore long sleeves, I actually scratch less because I scratch more when I can see my skin. If I cover it up, then I won't scratch as much. So that's kind of like a tip that might be helpful for you, especially if you're someone who's noticing that when you look at your skin, you want to scratch it more. So why don't we try covering it up? Other things that come in handy are bandages. There's all kinds. I'm a big fan of tubular bandages. They were the ones that you wear around your joints, and that helps a lot with just protecting the skin. I also used a lot of gauze, especially in areas where it was oozy, just to make sure the open wound wasn't being exposed all the time to prevent any infections from happening. So those are basically my top skincare regimen routine for managing TSW. And so if you guys are a little bit more curious about my journey, since I kind of mentioned it here in the episode, go ahead and check out episode 1. I actually talk all about my story, what I did for TSW, how I even developed eczema. So definitely go back to episode 1 if you haven't listened to that one yet. Okay, so let's do a quick recap of the top 5 tips for healing TSW. Number 1, get rest as much as possible. Focus on self-care, focus on sleep, take naps, take time away from work if you can, and really just give your body as much rest as possible. Number 2 is to avoid any kind of dieting. Your body needs nutrients, your body loses protein and calories when you're fighting TSW, so avoid any restrictive dieting and try to add more nutrients into your diet as much as possible. Number 3, have a good support team. It's important to have not just one person on your team for one thing, but to have several different practitioners because they are trained in their area of expertise in order to help you in the different areas where you need help, whether it's nutrition, whether it's stress, mindset, or just having a doctor to assess your case. Number 4 is to focus on yourself and no one else's journey. I think that explains itself. Try not to compare. Just do you. Try to be consistent with your protocol. Don't jump onto the next one because then we don't know if the one that you're on is really working if we don't give yourself time on it. And the last tip for healing TSW is to have a good skincare routine. Try Dead Sea salts, bandages, comfortable clothing, or gauze as an example. Okay, I hope you guys found today's episode helpful. If you're going through TSW and you need more support, let me know. This is what I do inside my coaching. I coach a lot of not only eczema clients, but also clients going through TSW, no matter what stage you're in. Feel free to reach out to me in the DMs on Instagram, or you can simply apply for coaching at the show notes below. If you have any other questions about this episode, feel free to message me, and I hope it helps you. I hope you guys have a lovely morning, lovely evening, and I hope these tips help. I love you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Now, before I let you go, I want to let you know I have this amazing free eczema visualization meditation. This visualization has helped me so much in my healing. It has helped me manifest skin healing faster than I ever imagined. My clients and I use it. We use it all the time in our group coaching calls, and it's honestly the best tool to use when it comes to healing. Now, if you want this visualization, all you have to do is leave us a review and give us a rating. Take a screenshot of this podcast and your review. Send it to our email at hello@juliachen.com, and you will receive this amazing free visualization. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss out on this one. This visualization has literally changed my life. My clients and I do this every night before bed or even first thing in the morning, and it helps them heal flares faster. Okay, look forward to hearing your review, and we will see you soon.